John McCain's with us now, a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs, and he's back home in Arizona. Senator, thank you.
Thank you, Shepard.
How you feel about this trial in Lower Manhattan?
Well, of course, I'd be very interested in these days of sequestration, how much the security costs will be, but very importantly in the short term, if this individual got his Miranda rights, which I'm very confident that he did, because any good lawyer is going to tell his client, his or her client, to do that, then we are deprived of the ability to interrogate this person and thereby perhaps being able to prevent attacks on the United States of America. And I'm not talking about waterboarding. I'm saying there are very successful interrogation techniques where we could find out vital information. Second of all, in all due respect, this man is not a common criminal. He was a member of the al-Qaeda hierarchy, being that close to Osama bin Laden, and he clearly, in my view, qualifies as an enemy combatant, which means he is tried by military commission.
Senator, which takes us to droning. They didn't drone him, so we would have that sort of opportunity, but there's a lot of droning going on these days, and the topic du jour for the last couple of days has been Senator Rand Paul of Kentucky's filibuster on Capitol Hill. He got a response out of the White House on whether the White House or the government could kill American citizens on American soil if they're not engaged in combat. And then of that filibuster, you said this.
The country needs more senators who care about liberty. But if Mr. Paul wants to be taken seriously, he needs to do more than pull political stunts that fire up impressionable libertarian kids in their college dorms. He needs to know what he's talking about.
About what is he confused, Senator?
Well, first of all, I was reading from the Wall Street Journal editorial, which I thought was right on mark. That's why I read from the editorial. Second of all, no one is going to be struck by a Hellfire missile from a drone that is not an enemy combatant. I mean, that's just a fact. And by the way, the reason why we use Hellfire missiles overseas in places like Yemen is because we don't have the ability to capture them. We want to capture these people, not kill them.
We had the ability, Senator, with Anwar al-Awlaki, did we not? I know that information suggests to us that we had agents and the host country had agents following him for 48 hours, directing where that drone would shoot. Would it not have been possible to capture him and do what is authorized under the Constitution rather than killing him and his innocent son?
Actually, it's one thing to follow somebody and know their whereabouts. It's something else to capture them. The reason why we kill people with drones, Shepard, is because we don't have military on the ground to get them. Second of all, Hanoi Jane Fonda, no one believes that no matter how egregious her activity was, that any president of the United States would launch a Hellfire missile on Jane Fonda. That is ludicrous. So instead of, right now, the centrifuges are spinning in Tehran. The North Koreans have threatened to launch a nuclear weapon against us and are threatening their neighbors. 70,000 people have been massacred in Syria while we sit and watch, and the Mideast is on a tinderbox. That's what we should be discussing. That's what we should be debating, not the impossible scenario. And by the way, I want more congressional oversight. I want the whole drone program switched over to the Department of Defense so that we can have the kind of oversight that it needs.
How about this,
Senator?
We need
to have debates in Congress. Go ahead.
What about, take it back to the root. After the attacks of 9/11, Congress gave then President George Bush the authority to use drone strikes. Would you be willing to entertain the idea of Congress debating the beginning and where that came from, maybe to better define when and with whom and where we're at war, and to put more parameters on the president's ability to drone?
Frankly, that's just what I just said. But I noticed that very few Republicans, if any, minded when George Bush was president about launching drone strikes. So maybe that's logical. But of course, I will repeat, we need congressional oversight. I believe it should be, all of this should be transferred to the Department of Defense. We need parameters as to the president's behavior. We need more transparency. But to somehow translate that into dropping Hellfire missiles on people in cafes in the United States of America, that is not what we should be discussing.
But part of this is about technology, and part of this is much bigger. Listen to what Rand Paul said in response to yours and Lindsey Graham's appearances on Capitol Hill.
Well, I think it's a good debate. I think they're on the wrong side of history. Both of these senators argue that America is part of the battlefield, so the laws of war apply. Well, the laws of war sometimes don't involve due process, and I acknowledge that. If soldiers if the enemy is shooting at our soldiers, there is no due process involved with that. We shoot back to kill. There are no judges and juries, but America is different.
Is America a battlefield?
Well, you might think so after at 9/11. If another airplane was headed towards the United States Capitol, such as the one that crashed in Pennsylvania, I am confident that we have the capability and should shoot that airplane down, even if tragically, and I mean tragically, there are innocent Americans on board that airplane. So obviously, if you think that the battleground is outside the United States of America, when everything they're thinking every moment of the day and night is to find ways they can attack the United States inside the United States, my understanding of Al-Qaeda and most people's is that they'd love to attack the United States and from within. And so I hope that we can continue this debate, as we said.
Sure.
But I also am very concerned about many other things, including sequester and the damage it's doing, which some of my Republican friends don't seem to be as concerned as they should be, in my view.
Senator, part of this is about a battle for the heart and soul of the party. There is a long-held Republican and conservative view on war to avoid it at all cost. That sort of a voice has had a difficult time. The Rand Paul wing, if you will, has had a difficult time having its voice heard. You and others have been interventionists. Let's intervene in Syria. Let's intervene in Libya. Let's bomb Iran. Is it your sense that he may be able to? Is it your sense that?
Do you really believe that?
Well, sir, all I'm asking is it your sense that Rand Paul may be bringing together those people in the basement who align maybe in some cases more closely with the left than with the right? For instance, Frank Rich this morning. Frank Rich was on board with this. So was Eugene Robinson.
Well, first of all, let me say that Senator Paul was the one vote against the resolution in the United States Senate that said that we should not allow Iran to acquire nuclear weapons. If you're going to go back to this joke I said to a fellow
I didn't mean it as a joke, Senator.
About
I'm sorry.
bombing, no, it was a joke, and you're saying that I wanted to bomb Iran, and of course, I never did.
Sir,
the party of Ronald Reagan, the party of Ronald Reagan is the party that believes that we should have peace through strength, and that's the best way to prevent these things. I'm of the party of Ronald Reagan, and there's been a debate in our party for years and years about whether we should withdraw to Fortress America or not. But to say that we are interventionists is a mislabeling and absolutely false. We are for a strong America, and we believe that's the best way to prevent war rather than a weakened military, which many of my colleagues now support, who are the isolationists, which goes all the way back to post-World War I.
Sure. Well, one thing's for sure, Republicans want to win. And another thing's for sure, they haven't been winning in national elections lately. And another thing that's for sure is that there's a battle for the soul of the party. And there appear to be two wings. It appears that Rand Paul just made his entrance onto the national stage. And upon watching your quotes and Senator Lindsey Graham's quotes, the Republican strategist Rick Wilson saw this and said, Senator Graham, and asked if this was representative of the twilight of the old order of the Republican Party. Is the Republican Party changing, and do you think the change is good?
After I came home from Vietnam, our military deteriorated to the point where the Chief of Staff of the Army came before Congress and said we had a hollow army. We are doing that in the form of sequestration. And along came Ronald Reagan, who restored our military, restored our strength, won the Cold War without firing a shot. That's the wing of the party that I'm part of and will remain part of, and I believe will be the future of the Republican Party. You can go back to post-World War I, prior to World War II, Charles Lindbergh, Henry Ford, post-World War II, the Taft wing of the party. There's always been that element. But the really winning part of our party is that believes, as Ronald Reagan did, in peace through strength. And that way is the best way to avoid conflicts, including what we are seeing now in the world where the world believes America is weak and withdrawing, and they are making the kind of conclusions that I think will endanger America's future.
Senator John McCain with us from Arizona. Sir, all the best, and thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on.
All right.